Schools in the United States of America have a shorter school year than school years of many foreign countries. The usual school year for the United States is currently around 180 days. For East Asian countries, the average school year is actually over 200 days. In this aspect, the United States may be considered behind in terms of the amount of schooling that the students receive. Also, without a direct comparison to other countries, the United States has a rather lengthy summer break, which has the potential to leave a negative effect on students. It may allow them to forget much of the material that they just spent learning in school during the previous 9 months. I am led to believe that the United States should increase the amount of days that children attend school. First off, let's take a look at our country's past. Schools were actually not mandatory during the 1850s here in the United States, and the school years actually reached 240 to 260 days. For the city's officials of city schools decided to have an elongated summer break since the school was not mandatory and those students didn't attend consistently. This was for at least one sufficiently logical reason. It was simply too hot for poorly ventilated schools back then. Well, today it does not seem that this reason still fully applies. We now have the technology to provide a cooler and healthier environment for students. Therefore, it would make sense to increase the school year back to a higher amount with regard to that reason. However, going as high as 260 days may be a bit much. Students in America go to school for about 13 years. We could change both primary and secondary schools, but it may not be the best idea to change both. We should change only the school year length for primary schools. There are reasons that support this change with respect to both primary and secondary schools. This change could benefit the parents who work daily and have younger age students, since there would be less time and less need to search for daycare and pay for daycare. When the students get older, they are generally permitted to stay home alone or are in charge of taking care of the younger siblings. The daycare is not as big an issue due to this. Also, when it comes to older students, they are allowed more privileges in society, like obtaining a job for the summer. To take this time away from those working students could do more harm than good. They would lose work experience that may prove to be quite valuable to them in the future, along with the money that they would make from the jobs in order to pay for their various interests and activities or needs. Nonetheless, having more school days would be beneficial for the education of the youth of our country. The increased amount of school days will obviously provide more time to educate the students. This can be utilized in several ways. It can be used to better cover material that is currently being covered, add more to the material that is currently covered, or it could even be used to add different subjects that are usually not part of the core curriculum. By taking away some time from summer in order to increase the amount of days in which students go to school, it will also eliminate some time that students have between their classes. This change will allow them to better remember the material that they have previously learned and be more prepared to jump right into classes when school resumes. Additional schooling time will hopefully better educate students in order to prepare them for their future. Extra time, when used wisely, will most likely improve the results. These results will inevitably not rely on the techniques and methods used by teachers. In other words, teachers still need to perform just as good or better than they always have. Another aspect to consider is the fact that the United States is not only behind in the time that students spend in school, but is also behind on scores on certain standardized tests. Now, of course, these tests may not mean everything, but it is not an aspect that should be ignored. According to a study conducted by an economist from Stanford, Harvard, and the University of Munich in 2010, only 6% of the U.S. students performed at the advanced proficiency level in math. The study covered 56 countries, and the students studied were students of the graduating class of 2009. When compared to other countries, 30 countries achieved higher percentages above the 6% that the United States achieved. Even when broken down state by state, 17 countries have a higher percentage than any state of the United States. On this visual, countries are yellow pencils and the states of the United States are blue pencils. This line here indicates the 6% of students of the United States who performed at the advanced proficiency level in math. As you can see here, Massachusetts had the most students perform at the advanced proficiency level in math for any state in the United States at 11.4% of students, while countries like Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Korea had percentages like 28%, 23.9%, and 23.2%. Further down the line, we have the United States right here. Of course, there are some countries below the United States, but there are plenty of countries that are above it and have percentages that differ from the 6% of the United States in greater magnitudes than the countries that fall below the United States. In order to maximize the mathematical comprehension, math can possibly be taught at a higher level for the students who are better at the subject, and more focus can be provided for the students who are struggling. It is also plausible to consider that other subjects may be incorporated into the classroom at a younger age. One possible subject that could be incorporated would be foreign language. In a fairly globalized world, a foreign language can prove to be an essential asset for a citizen looking for a job, or even a convenience whenever wanting to travel to a foreign country. By starting a foreign language at an earlier age, the students may have an easier experience with foreign language since they are more exposed to it for a longer period of time compared to the current average student. Now, there are obviously some counterarguments that I should examine. First of all, in order to run the school longer, there would be additional costs. This may include costs to keep the schools cooler in summer and the costs to keep the employees longer. It would only seem fair to increase the salaries for those who work longer. Also, there are summer camps to consider. There are those camps that run the length of the summer, and there are those camps that only last a week or two. If the schools were to be a month longer, then there would be more time for education, but it would not eliminate summer camps entirely. The longer summer camps may just have to be edited a little bit in order to comply with the increase of the school year. Since there will be an increased cost, there may need to be a new tax in order to help fund the schools. Since the schools are only increased by a small proportion, then the extra cost should not be astoundingly high increase. With that said, it can be understood that the tax does not need to be astoundingly high either. Now, I'm not going to propose any sort of specific taxation. I'm just suggesting that this is probably the best way to pay for the change of schools since this country is already in so much debt. In order to accomplish this goal, we should amend the Constitution to specify a set of school days for public primary schools. To add some leniency, it should range from 200 to 235 days, as opposed to the current 180 days. 200 days would be an increase of a month, and the 235 days would be the same as school every weekday for every week of the year, with 2 weeks off for winter, a week off in the spring, a week off for Thanksgiving, and then 5 additional floating holidays. With the leniency range from 200 to 235 days, the states can individually set up laws to coordinate the days into a schedule that would be most appealing to them. The suggestion that I would have is to make the additional days during the summer months. By doing this, it will most likely improve student performance by eliminating such a large chance to forget their material. To accompany this amendment, there should be a text that would help pay for the additional operation costs and the wages of the employees for those schools that will have the increased amount of school days. We just need to make sure that the teachers do not lighten up. The key to a quality education, in the end, will be quality teaching. The result that is desired from the extension would be an extension to quality teaching, which would in turn provide more education to the children of the future. Thank you for your time.